How would you like to intentionally be fed poison and the apparent cure by the same company? This is what a number of users are asking just leading up to the merger, the announced merger between a top pharmaceutical company and Monsanto. It's an extremely controversial agricultural company. They are just on the verge of a merger. This has been announced roughly 1 year ago, but this is moving forward. Now, despite almost no mainstream media coverage on this, really seems like the mainstream media, both left and right, is avoiding this, hearing very little in the alternative media as well. I really implore people to share this video. I have a number of articles linked in the description with some very important information regarding this deal. A couple of things that immediately stick out is the fact that 1 million consumers have come together despite this non-coverage from the mainstream media. It's still been important enough to gain a number of many signatures against this merger. And you now have over 1 million petitions from consumers calling on the Department of Justice to block this Bayer-Monsanto merger. How likely is it that the Department of Justice is going to take action here? Not very, in my view. It's not very likely at all. Jeff Sessions came under fire from both Democrats and Republicans yesterday, or Democrats and Trump voters, maybe I should say, as it seemed that yesterday he spent most of his testimony defending himself. Only Jeff Sessions basically spent most of his House Judiciary Committee hearing yesterday defending himself, saying that he refuses to take any action investigating Hillary Clinton for the Uranium One scandal. People had been calling for that, saying instead that the Department of Justice should never be used to retaliate politically against opponents. So Jeff Sessions, all signs point to him wanting to protect the swamp. Obviously, any company, any politician that has done the shady sorts of deals that Hillary Clinton and others have done, they are going to make political enemies. Shouldn't in any way be an excuse not to follow up with an investigation. So while that is a separate issue, to me, points to Jeff Sessions' priorities being taking on these non-issues or these smaller issues like whistleblowers within the administration and his crusade against plants, against cannabis. This is his focus. Meanwhile, you have a company that is literally selling you poison food and wants to sell you the cure. The massive drug issues with these pharmaceutical companies. It's not on Jeff Sessions' radar at all, it seems. This is a big deal. This post asks the question that I opened this video with, but they point to a few specific issues with Monsanto. Of course, Monsanto has a very long history with many scandals. It's probably too much to cover in one video, but they sum it up saying that this could be described as the biggest issue of our time. It's being completely drowned out, even amongst most of these alternative media outlets. This user he suspects that Monsanto has an army of bots, at least as big as a state actor. They're also using this to help cover up discussion or subvert discussion of this issue. He links to another post that summarizes Monsanto's history of poisoning people. They warn that this poison is literally in everything. Even if your food is organic, they say these pesticides and herbicides ride the wind. They also get into the water used on plants that you're drinking right now, and will screw up your hormone balance beyond belief, they say. The levels shown in a video that they link to with some more sources are within EPA guidelines. We're talking parts per billion here, and are still enough to make male frogs grow eggs. What's the solution? This user says people should be thinking about distilling their drinking water and only eating organic or non-GMO foods. If you can afford to bathe in RO water, he says do that too, as your skin can absorb a glass of tap water in the shower. He says, I've been doing this for 5 months. He feels like a different person. Another user, I'll just point out two or three of the most useful comments here. Somebody else adds on that they believe that the biggest crime in this merger is the several $billion in tax funds that originally created these Monsanto monopolies. Monsanto also coming under fire, not only for their hazardous use of pesticides and poisons in their food, but also this sort of this extremely aggressive tactics in taking over the market. They are shooting for a monopoly. That's what they've been doing up until this point. They received a lot of criticism. They were helped into doing this, very similar, in my view, to one of the top business people now, Jeff Bezos, is, in my view, trying to acquire a similar monopoly with his acquisition of Whole Foods, the Washington Post he owns, Amazon, and they are having their own aggressive business tactics to gain a further market share. He, of course, had his own $600 million deal with the CIA. So one could argue that this was originally funded by the deep state. Jeff Bezos, I'm talking about here. Similar issue. This user is summarizing how this monopoly acquired by Monsanto, it comes right off of a several $1 billion that were gifted to them basically in tax funds for research that they were given the patents for. This user goes on to say tax money to push their programs in the global economy, tax money to hide and obfuscate the harm their products are doing to the soil, bees, humans, and water. They would not exist without tax money now. He says it is all to be given to a foreign-owned corporation. At the very least, the patents ought to be handed over to the U.S. government, who paid for the research that made them possible, then put up for bid separately. So there's a number of issues, and actually going back to the original report on these million consumers that are calling on the DOJ, they have a few quotes from the Consumer Federation of America, a report released by them that expand on this issue. From the report, they point out that these mega mergers in the U.S. seed and agrochemical sector, the political economy of tight oligopolies on steroids, and the squeeze on farmers and consumers. They expand on how this might impact small farmers and consumers. Specifically, they say they point that this report uses the concept of a tight oligopoly on steroids to examine how the unique characteristics of this Bayer-Monsanto merger magnify their already huge market power in the seed and agrochemical sector, and put further, they increase the squeeze on farmers and consumers. Today at this National Press Club, they point out a panel of experts discussed the findings of these reports. So a quote talking about how this could impact consumers, farmers, and competition in the face of record low commodity prices and struggles in rural America. The quote reads, "The opportunity for every farmer, every business, and every entrepreneur to have a fair shot at an open and just market is the core principle that built America and its prosperity." That's what Joe Maxwell says. He goes on to say our government's unwillingness to enforce our anti-monopoly laws and allow these mega mergers to go forward is threatening our very democracy. Bayer and Monsanto's toxic mega merger is a danger to our planet and everyone living on it. Over 1 million Americans have called on the Department of Justice to protect our farmers and families from consolidation of corporate power. Bayer and Monsanto's merger is a direct threat to the future of people and our environment. The Justice Department must put on the brakes and stop this merger. They say merger between Bayer and Monsanto is a 5-alarm threat to our food supply and to farmers around the world. This new mega corporation would be the world's biggest seed maker and pesticide company, defying important antitrust protections, giving it unacceptable control over critical aspects of our food supply, and also undermining consumer choice and the freedom and stability of farmers worldwide. Regulators should listen to the farmers, ranchers, researchers, and industry experts who have called on them to block this Bayer-Monsanto merger. The merger threatens to bring higher prices, job losses, and continued consolidation to a sector that already suffers from too little competition. Mega merger will make it even harder to find open pollinated heirloom seeds that smaller independent family farmers prefer. Anything that is not this ultra pesticide, this super GMO food, it's going to be very difficult to find any sort of alternative unless you're growing it yourself, basically. Finally, they say that this mega merger will give the company a stranglehold on the vegetable seed, cottonseed, corn, and soy seed markets, which will only increase prices and put farmers' livelihoods at risk. The ongoing horizontal and vertical integration of our already highly concentrated food production system is killing competition for America's cattle ranchers. In fact, the U.S. cattle industry is now the only remaining livestock sector not already controlled from birth to plate by just a few multinational behemoths. So this is the direction that things are going. And this official report, they're focusing on the antitrust issues here, the impact on small farmers. If you go further down the conspiracy rabbit hole, I guess, a lot of people think that this is part of an intentional system that people are being forced into, where Monsanto, again, many scandals involving them using pesticides, poisoning their own consumer base. And then you are going to be forced to buy the cure, the pharmaceutical cure, as they call it, from the same company that poisoned you originally, and may very well be distributed by Whole Foods, who is a company that is backed by the CIA. So the deep state will deliver it to your door too. Is that really the future that people want as far as this? I think people really need to speak up. Please, again, I encourage you to share this video. Finally, I just remind people that I'm over at patreon.com/realityreader. Thank you, everybody that has donated. It makes a huge difference. Even $1 or $2 gives me some extra time and resources to put back in the channel, keep reporting on this. It's linked in the description of this video as well, patreon.com/realityreader. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If you could leave a like on this video, it's greatly appreciated. I will follow up shortly. Thanks, everyone.